You know, with every superhero movie having to be about different dimensions now, I figure, why not try a different shot?
If I can't undo what I did, there might not be a future.
Ezra Miller is running as fast as possible from the past. Don't even need a punchline on that one, in the Flash. And let me tell you, I eventually came around to enjoying this movie, but boy, was it a bumpy ride. This is a film that has a lot wrong with it. There's a lot of things you can point out as problems and things that don't quite go together or mesh up or connect, but by the time I got to the end, I had to say, yeah, I think I'm glad I saw this. Everything came together just well enough, but if I'm thinking that, my guess is there's gonna be a fair amount of people who are not gonna get into this movie. If you're one of those people who looks at a film by kind of adding everything up at the end where you say, okay, well, did this work? Did this character come across as charming or interesting? Did these things really gel? I don't know if this is gonna be the film for you. For me, I was really going back and forth between, do I recommend this, do I not? But by the time it got to the ending, the last third, which is funny because that's where a lot of films usually fall apart, that's where things really kind of came together. This is another one of those films where the ending does kind of save everything, but it isn't a film where everything is terrible before the last third. It just has some problems that do stop it from being anything complete. It is definitely not a complete movie. The first thing I can mention that is definitely not complete, the effects. They are quite bad in this. They are, dare I say, very Polar Express. They really do not look convincing. The textures are off. They look very video game-like. But the one thing that does help it out is that they're still used in a creative way. The effects are still shot in a very cinematically appealing way. The way they show time travel in this looks very fake, but it is very creative in the way they take something that was set up in the Snyder Cut of Justice League. If you've seen that film, you know what they do with the Flash at the end of that, and they kind of take it to the next level, and they take in that level not just in terms of the concept, but also visually, and they really play around with it. But the whole time, I could just feel the aggravation of the director, who you know just planned out these amazing shots and amazing fight sequences under the impression that the effects are gonna look very realistic and very convincing, and they don't. I still admire the ambition of these shots and these fight sequences and some of these ideas, but because the effects just don't look that great, they do get distracting. There's, without going to too many spoilers, a lot of cameos and Easter eggs that appear in this film, as you would expect, particularly near the end, and there is one that should have been really emotional and really heartfelt, but the effects completely ruin it. With that said, there is one moment where I noticed a certain character, or a version of a character, from a distance, and it's the only time in the movie where I actually went, whoa! And everyone stopped and looked at me like I was out of my mind, and I just pointed at the screen like, no, you keep watching. And when it finally got to the reveal of this character, everyone else collectively went, whoa! And I'm just like, yeah, dude, I could spot that a mile away, man. It was a pretty cool moment.
Meant to go back and fix them. Don't let your tragedy define you.
Did Batman just say that? Barry Allen is kind of like a mix between the Flash from the Snyder Cut and the Flash from the Whedon Cut. Sometimes it works and it's effective, and other times it's a little off-putting and awkward in a way that just kind of feels like it's forced awkward. It doesn't feel very natural, but I feel like the emotional moments that he has to pull off do legit work, and some of the comedic moments do work. Young Barry is like a mix of the Wheaton Cut and Pauly Shore. He is really obnoxious. Not to the point where he's like one of the most annoying characters I've ever seen or anything, but there are so many moments where he just completely bombs a scene. Like, you'll have them in the Antarctic and they're like gonna sneak in, they're gonna try to save somebody, and he says, "Why is it snowing?" And the other Barry's like, "'Cause it's the Antarctic, Barry." And I'm like, what are you doing? That is the stupidest line even for teenage Barry to say. Get used to that sound, because that's half of young Barry's performance. They give him this really annoying laugh, a lot of really bad dialogue, but again, he does work by the end. When you see what they're actually doing with this, it works out okay, but man, it's, like I said, it's a real bumpy road to get there sometimes. Now, with that said, there are things this film does that I thought were very clever, despite them being done in a lot of other movies. The idea that there's not really a main villain in this is kind of interesting. Now, don't get me wrong, there are threats in this. As you've seen in the trailer, General Zod comes back in this, and he's technically one of the main villains in this, but he's literally a recycled villain, and he's treated as such. I like the fact that the focus is on the appropriate character in this. It is focused on the Flash. All the trailers make it look like it's going to be about Batman or Supergirl, and they are in it a fair amount, but it's not their movie, and I like that. Even though, of course, I love seeing Michael Keaton back as Batman, this is still called The Flash. It should be about the Flash, and definitely the first half of the movie is pretty much his, and he's holding the film all right. The writing around this character and his dilemma is legitimately well done, and I think when they actually do reveal what the main threat is, which they don't really do until maybe like the last 20 minutes, it surprisingly works. And what they do in the last 20 minutes, you would usually see in films like this in the middle. They would set it up in the middle of the movie and then drag it out, and I think surprisingly, by saving that till the end, it works okay. And it's funny because I feel like I've seen other films do this and they have not worked okay. I've seen Disney do this recently or last year, and it really blew up in their faces, in my opinion. And here I thought it actually worked out okay, because we do really have an understanding of this character and what the character is going through. So I thought holding off on that surprisingly really worked, and the whole movie was about this, was about the struggle of this character. So I thought that actually was very effective.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
He said the thing! Yeah, I had to listen to a lot of that at my screening. The side characters in this, Keaton returning as Batman and also introducing Supergirl, I think work well enough. I can't say they're great, but I thought they were effective. In some respects, I wanted to see more of them in other movies. I wouldn't mind seeing more versions of these characters if they got their own films. You know, a lot of people talk about Michael Keaton coming back as old Bruce Wayne for like a Batman Beyond film, and when you see Ezra Miller in the Batcave there and old Michael Keaton, it would kind of work, and I want to see more of it. This could just be a me thing, I don't know. I think he looks silly in the bat mask, and I think they make it very clear this is not the same Bruce Wayne from Batman 89. It's a very similar version, but the way he acts, some of his attitude, and some of the details of his past are different, so I like that they do make it clear this is an alternate version, but it has a lot of similarities to the 89 Batman. I think that's fine, but there's something about he's older, his face is shaped differently, even his acting is a little different, so when he puts that Batman mask on and he has to go fight crime and that terrible CGI takes over whenever he has to fight, it's awkward, it's weird, it's odd, but I'd be lying if I said there weren't a lot of moments that weren't pretty cool. Hearing him kind of do the voice again. Him flying the Batwing is pretty cool. They made some changes to the Batwing in this, and it's really pretty damn awesome. I really like a lot of the action sequences with that.
As if fighting crime would bring my parents back.
Yeah, if you don't believe me, this isn't the 89 Batman. Tell me he would have that haircut. I don't know much about Supergirl, even though it's a very popular character, and this kind of looks like a different version of the character. It's definitely not the long blonde hair, bubbly personality, always upbeat. I mean, this is like a very angsty, pissed off character, and I kind of like that. The little backstory that they give her is just enough to make her interesting. I think she kind of reminds me of Rey from Star Wars, which I know people are very split on, but that's another character where I feel like there wasn't a ton of writing behind the character. There was just enough, and then the acting kind of filled in the rest. I thought Daisy Ridley did a good job as that character and really add a lot, and I feel like this actress kind of does the same thing. It's not like there's a whole ton of backstory behind her, but what they do have in there is enough to make you understand why she feels this way and why she's reacting to everything the way she's reacting to it. Once in a while, sometimes it's a little sped up in the last chunk before the climax. I kind of felt like, well, you could delve a little bit more into this, but it's also almost a 2.5 hour movie, so I kind of get where they're trying to make snips where they could. I guess I'll talk about the super dog in the room. A lot of people are aware that Ezra Miller has been in the news a lot recently, and I'm sure you're going to be asking, is that going to be distracting you from the performance in this? Is it going to get in the way of your enjoyment of this film? I'm usually pretty good at separating that stuff, though it is a case-by-case basis. Like, I can watch Louis C.K. and still laugh, okay, put all that behind me. I cannot watch Bill Cosby, any of his stuff, not just because his crimes were far worse, but his whole shtick is that he's a good, ethical family man, so, like, that's out the window for me. With this, the majority of it, I could get through it fine, but there are 1 or 2 moments where I swear they are baiting us to think about it. There's a scene where the Flash saves a person and then says something like, now these are usually traumatic moments, so I recommend seeing a mental health expert. There's plenty around the city. The Justice League doesn't have one, trust me, I know. And I'm like, what genius left that in? There are a couple moments like that where it feels like the pot calling the kettle Flash, but on the other hand, there are moments, particularly near the end, where I really did just forget about all of that and I really got into their performance. The ending does kind of redeem a lot of the problems of this film. And even though it's doing a message you've heard a million times in these time travel stories, it really feels like they're giving it just a fresh enough take. Like I said, I really feel like they kind of took that last chunk from the Snyder Cut with the Flash and they're really playing around with it, and I like that. I like if they're gonna take from any version of Justice League, you take from the Snyder Cut, you know what I mean? So I really like they seem to have tapped a great deal into that. So let's give it 3 out of 4 80s tricksters. 2.5, no 3. The ending really did save it. With that said, what did you think? And I want to make it clear, if you want to talk about spoilers, I am going to do a spoiler corner video on this. This is definitely a movie that I should talk about the spoilers as well. So don't talk about spoilers below, just talk about your initial thoughts on it. Did you enjoy the movie? Was it everything you were hoping for? Was it great to see Michael Keaton back as Batman and Supergirl was awesome and it still felt like this was a focus on the Flash and it was great? Or did you feel like it was terrible? It's just trying to stuff in way too much and the effects just got in the way and blew everything? Or are you somewhere in between like me where you say, you know what, it's got its problems, but man, I can't overlook the good stuff in it? Let me know what you think and I'll see you next time. Take care.